Yeah, ready.
Yeah, I guess I can start?
Yeah.
Yeah? Hey guys, how you feel after lunch? Dizzy? No? Sleepy? Yeah. As you can see, there will be another talk about AI. Imagine these two letters again here at the conference, like, wow. This is how I feel when I attend the conferences these days. It's everywhere. And this is how I feel when I open my phone and I see some LinkedIn posts, Instagram posts, everything. Yeah, please come and join. And I'm like, feel constantly overwhelmed by this. Like you can use every term like AI, Gen AI, whatever, but still the feel of overwhelming is there. So, and I want to help you today because obviously next 40 minutes would be about AI, but I don't want to pronounce the word AI too much. We need some solution, right? And maybe, like, as I started already about this, we may have some sort of AI buzzword fatigue. I'm counting that. Raise your hand, please, if you feel like that. If you feel like it's just getting too much, if you like constantly doing bingo, like, or so on. Like, basically, I have a theory. If we took a shot every time at this conference, when we hear the word AI, none of us would survive, right? Like, maybe we don't want to do that. So, I work for a company called Conto. That would be the story about how we rolled out AI. And the story here is an important word. Because I want to do the proper story, proper storytelling, and what is required for storytelling. Maybe any guesses? Who needs to be in the story?
You.
I'm the person who's telling the story. Besides that, any guesses? What?
Your colleagues.
I mean, just a story about any story can be like in the book.
Main character.
Main character, right? Yeah. Let's introduce main character into the story. Instead of me saying AI all the time, I'm providing you some solution for this. Every time I say the word AI, that equals the word Sammy. Who is Sammy? Sammy is the beaver, as you can see. Analogy is quite simple. There's a rookie engineer who is joining your team. Basically just graduated from university and eager to learn. And you can ask Ilya, why are you making such a cringy comparison, right? Pictures and everything. I'll tell you what they have in common, AI as a technology and Sammy as a beaver. They're both eager to help. They're both overconfident sometimes. They're both stubborn. But the key is they both love the things that your seniors hate. So they actually thrive at tasks that, like low-hanging fruits, some like legacy tasks that have been there for a while already. And this is the analogy for the story. I hope it would smooth it out. And now the philosophical question, like what would be your approach onboarding Sammy to your org? Imagine in 2022, Sammy just graduated. What would be your approach? Would you throw Sammy, would you pair Sammy with the best engineers from day one? Maybe would you throw Sammy into ocean of features and either Sammy will drown or learn how to swim in this ocean of features somehow? Or maybe would you put Sammy in isolated space for months and then do the trial exam at the end, right? That kind of questions that I'll try to answer today through our story, how we did it at Conto. First, context, where did Sammy land in 2022? What is Conto? What is the company? Anyone heard about the company called Conto? Okay. Yeah, that's the banking app, mostly operating in France. In Paris, we have our headquarters. We have more than 600K customers, and for this talk, it's quite specific to mobile a bit. We have a huge mobile org of 220 engineers. So we are one of the rarest companies in the market who has like native engineers, like in both stacks, 16 on Android, 16 on iOS. So as you can imagine, like it's quite challenging environment for Sammy to join, right? That the stakes are super high. We released our Android app daily. I see some thumbs up, thank you. I'm not sure, before I joined Conto, I never seen anything like this. When Android app is being released every day, this is what we do. Because of some limitations on iOS, we do it 2 times per week. But we have a lot of overhead because of this, but we deliver our value as fast as possible. So quite challenging setup for Sammy to join. So again, we are fintech. We have constant delivery pressure. We have deadlines, obviously, but we're still kind of maintaining a huge focus on quality as well. As every big company, Since you can imagine if we have 120 engineers, likely our organization is super big, right? We have some culture values. One of the values is pragmatism over hype. We just don't use the tools because they're trendy tools. They have to prove their worth. And if there is no impact or benefit from these tools, we would kill it. That's our mindset. And now maybe a bit about me, why I'm here, why I'm talking about all these stories, beavers, and so on. I'm an engineering manager, one of the teams. I'm leading their Android and iOS. So yeah, I'm managing people, as you can already imagine, one chaotic beaver that sometimes terrifies me, but sometimes really surprises me. Originally, I'm Android dev, started from 2012 from Jelly Bean. Anyone here started? Let me first rephrase. Any Android engineers here? Any mobile engineers? Flutter counts as well? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Let me then retarget our talk today a little bit. And a bit about me. I'm a huge basketball fan. I hope we have more basketball fans than mobile engineers. Yeah, okay, the same amount. Nice. Yeah, because we're in Germany, and Germany is like a Europe champion these days, right? Yeah, that's a bit about me. And then maybe the last thing before I officially get started to the story, short disclaimer. Again, on a story, not a sales pitch. Unfortunately, I don't want to sell you any software today or any AI stuff. That would be really harsh truth about AI sometimes not helping and actually doing the opposite. Ups, downs, experiments that we tried and what we learned and where we failed. That's even more important. You won't get any go-to plan. Just don't expect. If you expected some go-to plan how to adopt AI in your org, just leave, please. And it's not happening. I don't want to do that. And with all of this, so let's go. The first phase, how Sammy was onboarded. So we called it chat era. Back then, Sammy was just a trainee. So basically, you can picture it like this. When Sammy was trainee, it was just ChatGPT. Came out in 2022. And since we are a bank, but this technology was also compelling, we started to feel like maybe we have a problem of our engineers copy-paste into ChatGPT some code which is not compliant, and we definitely don't want to do that. That's why back then we took a first step, helping Sammy to onboard properly to our org. We collaborated with a vendor LLM wrapper basically called Dust. Anyone here is like familiar is with AI vendors, so like LLM wrappers just in general? Maybe someone is using instead of going directly to ChatGPT and providing API keys for your engineers to ChatGPT, you basically partner with some third-party organization and anyone? Yeah? Okay, okay. But basically the idea is, like I said, like we are a bank, we want to be compliant, we want to store our data in a secure way. We don't want to upload files to ChatGPT. So that's why we are using one of the vendors that basically storing the data on their servers. So they provide some certain level of security that is important for us. And Dust is one of the platforms. So basically the idea is new model comes out, and we have access to it on day one. Either it's Anthropic, either it's ChatGPT, either it's DeepSeek. You can take a look at there and use it right away. Also, in that platform, I will show you the examples later, but first, you can integrate a few things, more things there. Like, instead of just chatting with ChatGPT about some basic data that it has, with the model, you can upload stuff there. So it uses rack storages and vector databases and so on, and you can use it. So we, at some point, we started uploading some Android team standards there and basically rules, and at that point, our engineers could chat with company-specific data instead of getting general answers. And then we also started to add more bots into it and integrating more and more, but on that a bit later. You can picture it like this. Maybe it would help if you never saw this concept before. On the left, you have basically every possible integration you can imagine. On the right, you have bots. So in the center, you have some third-party vendor who's controlling all of that. For us, what is important here is maybe Notion and Confluence, because anyone using Atlassian products, Confluence for documentation? Yeah, so we use Notion for this. So basically, imagine you could already upload specification of some feature into that bot, into that chat, and then speak about feature and so on. And then it was 2023, 2024. Yeah, but This talk is more desired for like a bit more mobile specifics. That's why I'm highlighting it here. This bot that we created. So we found a way in 2023, 2024, beginning 2024, how to connect our GitHub repository to this beautiful chat solution. So imagine before Cursor or any other fork from Visual Studio, who is right now popular, we got the access way earlier to it, and our engineers could chat with the actual code. And it was a really smooth transition to the later tools that I will show you in a second. So, and typical use cases was like poor repo context, again, like generic transfer. We moved from generic transfers to really Qonto-specific code insights. I mean, maybe even some engineers tried to copy-paste some code, like unit tests, maybe creating something like this, but still nobody generated code for us. Back then, Sammy was still limited to just prompting, asking, and then interacting, like brainstorming, more or less. Yeah, we had good adoption of it. Like 52% of our engineers tried it on regular basis, on everyday basis. Again, I already explained to you the typical usage, like explaining architectural patterns, onboarding standards, and processes, more or less. And like small spoiler alert, we're still using that, mostly from brainstorming. So when the engineer starts some feature, for example, or a product maybe wants to use this bot as well, they can pass the docs or connect it to the system and then chat about it. So by this day, 30 daily users, there's half of Android team who has been using that. We find it as a good result because it's daily usage. Like you can't really like compare it against other tools at this moment. But yeah, final thing about this. This is how it looks like. Chat window. I will highlight for you the important stuff. Chat window, and you can pick different bots. And these bots can be created by human, basically, by everyone in the company. So you pick the model, you add the context, you even add some files, connections, integrations, and then this way you can imagine what you can build. You can build the agents already before the word agents existed, right? What did we learn from this step? That step was super essential for us. Because what I see right now in the market, everyone is like in this AI hype, so on, and they are jumping directly in the code generation, like right directly to the Visual Studio forks and Cursor, and they try to build features and try to build pieces of the code that helps company. Yeah, but there is a lot of friction because of this. Because this is a new tools. This is like we are right now at the era of like really changing the way how we build software. And as an engineer myself, like I get some sort of friction that if someone tells me to use some tool, I cannot like jump in it right away. Like I need some time to process it and pass this friction, right? And also, since I mentioned the word friction already, why this friction happens? Because there is no trust in these tools. So this trust has to be earned and declared. This is what we learned as well. The whole process started from the top, like in every other company. We had our CTO saying, "Let's use it. Let's go, guys." And then we kind of it went down to our level, and then we already like discussed how exactly we want to proceed. So it wasn't just about giving licenses, and there was more like culture shift. Because what we learned, if you just give licenses to engineer and then say, "Give me impact in 2 weeks or like 2 months, whatever," it would never work. It should be a bit more process, a bit more strategic approach. And for us, this strategy was to first build this safe playing ground, to work with Sammy, to onboard engineers, to get their buy-in, and then proceed. More on this, attaching here the link. You can get it later on QR code at the last slide. But our CTO, Emric, wrote the post about the experimentation from 2023, 2024. You can read it on Medium later. Now, phase 1 was chats, phase 2, agents, right? Let's just not copy-paste the code. Let's not brainstorm. Let's actually give Sammy the way to write actual production code. And like maybe just a quick, I'm pretty sure that this slide is already quite outdated because I gave this talk already 1 month ago, but I feel like this audience knows the difference between chats and engines. If you don't know the difference, please raise your hand. Otherwise, yeah, okay. Then, agents, they go beyond conversation, they can write for you, right? They read your repository, they code actually, they run commands, they have access to a terminal, and so on. And chats, they live in browser. And my problem, when something lives in browser, you have friction of going back and forth between different tools. So what we learned along the way, if something lives inside of your IDE, if you use, like, I don't know, Visual Code or JetBrains products or anything, if you have to go constantly back and forth between the tools, you either lose your focus or either use low energy or something is not clicking. So remember this, that's important learning for this talk. I'll come back to this later. So we gave Sammy access to actually write the code, but we didn't do this in a way that just write the code for us and get us some impact. No, we gave Sammy freedom to experiment. And next, I will show you two stories. One story would be about some failed experiment, obviously. Another one would be about success experiment. I will let you figure out which is which, not spoiling for now. But let me start from the first one. Again, maybe just to clarify, front-end engineers here? Or mostly? I feel like mostly here the crowd from backend, no? Yeah, more or less. Okay, got it. This slide is perfect for you guys then. The idea was, like, there is a Figma screenshot. There's Cursor ID. You can pass the screenshot from Figma to Cursor and then generate some code. So, but compose code, it means basically the UI layer, right? Super simple idea. We had POC in the company, an internal hackathon. Everything worked, everything clicked. Everyone was excited, but also terrified that maybe now we as Android engineers will lose our jobs because of this. But we were all super hyped. Do you think it worked out? No. Immediate no. Yeah, it didn't work out. So we have design system, and apparently our design system is so big, complex and good that it's just too much for LLM to handle at that point. So it led to hallucination, basically more or less. Also, here was mentioned the word MCP. Again, it was beginning of the year, I think this year, this whole experiment. And MCP servers back then was not stable for us. We were using not official Figma plugging okay, I don't want to explain it to backend guys, but back then we used the fork on MCP. It didn't work for us and it wasn't stable. But the most important learning here was that it led to the low adoption, basically because it lived in Cursor and not on Android Studio. And Android Studio is the main IDE for Android developers. So this friction, again, that I mentioned, that was quite important to learn. Again, learning here is more important than telling about what exactly failed. We learned that great demos doesn't mean anything. We can demo whatever we want, but it doesn't translate to any success. Yes, we got in this experiment, we got the 80% done screen, and then you have to do 20%, but you all know 80-20 rule, and somehow it would not work. And we decided not to spread and not to iterate anymore on this, and wait until LLMs catch up with complexity. But again, remember this experiment about Figma, because it started from in the beginning of the year, but we may be doing something else about it. Now the positive story, how Sammy got promoted actually to L1 level. So Sammy started as a trainee, just graduated from university, not so much of the impact bringing to the team, and now the story how he secured the first promotion. Starting from problem, I'm pretty sure that story would be familiar when you have some super huge model, some monolith model, and like 300 files, let's say, and you can't really untangle that, like potentially. You can move these small pieces of this model to feature teams. In our case, this word test fixtures means just a test mocks. So we use UI test setup, and there was some file, a big model, where we used a lot of like AI-generated mocks for our UI tests. And the task was simple, just move these files around in different models, and that would bring better build time, and also that would solve the problem about ownership. It's quite clear and simple. So basically, this is how engineers looked like during PRs when something like was changed in that model. And also that's quite specific also for mobile engineers. Like every time you change something there, you have to rebuild the app and it takes time. It's just not convenient. So the target was just to move the files around. Like I said, you can ask, you can move it yourself, right? Like, do you like these tasks as engineers? Do you like the moving the stuff around like 1,000 files? So I don't like this. So this is the perfect task for Sammy. That would like our idea was to like faster build time, clean ownership. It's quite easy as well. And we decided to use Cloud Code for this. Spoilers, little spoilers. As of November 2025, Cloud Code is our official tool for Android team. We hopped on this CLI train a lot, and we like ditched every IDE solution or everything. Like we are using mainly Cloud Code, maybe with some experimentation of codecs as well, but Cloud Code primarily. And this was a perfect task for Cloud Code. We iterated a lot on the prompt, but I don't need to explain right now what is Cloud Code, likely, right? Please, if someone don't know what the Cloud Code is, please raise your hand. It's totally fine. Honestly, I feel like every month the industry is changing so fast that if I explain it last month, it doesn't mean that this month I should explain it. That's why I'm asking. So it's a CLI tool. It lives in your terminal, and you have access directly in Android Studio. It solves direct that friction. You can have everything built in your one place and avoid losing your developer focus. Yeah, we got a success from it. No, this is not spoilers because I mentioned you 2 stories, one successful, one not. We estimated it originally like 3 weeks of work, human work, to move all these files around, also dependencies, and Cloud Code helped us to do it in 5 days. So also by achieving our test build times basically down twice. That's quite good. And that was exact boring, low creative satisfaction to humans' work. It was Sammy loved it. So we iterated a lot of prompts. Even did this when we did Cloud Code night shifts. So basically we iterated a lot on the prompt at the point that we didn't want to spend time of developer during day. So we just run Cloud Code commands and like close laptop and like went to sleep. I wouldn't advise you to do this approach every time, only for super refined prompts and specific tasks. Yeah, that's the idea. And you review, of course, code in the morning. But for this sort of tech depth tasks, like, it can work. And we spotted some pattern with this, like because our developers started to use all of these AI benefits and semi-benefits. We spotted this pattern. If you're lazy enough to avoid repetitive work, but you smart enough to find a solution, everyone benefits, right? So the laziest developers, but also smart ones, they're the ones who thrive. This is the pattern we noticed. And also, I honestly believe it's not only applied for engineering, it's also like laziness is main driver for human evolution. Like if you're lazy, but also smart enough and have this edge, everyone can benefit. So main takeaway here is that for us, Sammy helped with repetitive, boring tasks, not features. So tech depth, maybe some bugs, but something that our devs didn't want to touch. That's the main point. Okay, there are some experiments. I shared it. I mean, as an engineer, you have to invest time in experiments. Maybe you don't have this energy. Maybe you don't have this time. Maybe you like feel stuck in features. For these folks, since we have big mobile engineering team, we also did something. We created Get Started guide. So basically, for every stack, like pages, basically on Notion, you can refer to them and get your all information you need in one place. Like we tested and known Toolbox, and also concrete use cases in FAQ, and more importantly, like concrete people you can reach out to, because we assembled the AI crew in our team who can reach out, and they have some sort of specialization in certain tools. For Cloud Code, for example, if you feel stuck, you don't know how to use certain things, you can book your workshop, we call it this way, with our engineer, and then the engineer explain it. Or maybe we have recordings of this, that would help a lot. A bit about mobile team Toolbox. I mentioned it more or less already. I don't want to spend too much time on it since we don't have mobile folks here, but Cloud Code, mentioned that already. We have Gemini Code Assist, because technically we just have Google AI subscription we use it only for method level. Let's say if Cloud Code is being used to move files, create new files, execute commands, and so on. Gemini is more like refactor this method, small one, because it's handy inside of IDE, that's it. And also we use this Dust model, LLM wrapper, the one that I mentioned previously. We still creating these bots, integrating more and more tools, more and more things. But I feel like we started to already move to some sort of agentic approach. And maybe in the future we would reiterate that, because we have this need to start and connect bots one by one, not just chatting, but delegating actually bots some work. So basically like code, but living somewhere like, let's say, on the backend side, and this is our future direction. The word prompt was mentioned many times already. We started to notice also throughout this process that our engineers were reinventing prompts every time. So imagine you get a task, you solve it with Cloud Code, and then another engineer gets the same tasks and again solves it with Cloud Code, spending our lovely tokens on this and spending money, company's money. We thought about the way how to fix this. Our first iteration was to create some prompts catalog. So basically you can picture it as one place inside of your Notion or Atlassian where you can copy-paste prompts. And these prompts, they're based on tags and so on. That was not ideal, but already helped, at least with the most repetitive tasks. But you can picture typical prompts for us in mobile engineering, like you can remove feature flag for a feature, you can extract model from monolith because you don't want to do it yourself, or you can create design system component. Again, it's mostly UI work, but still you get the idea that it's repetitive tasks that getting repeated with every feature and every team. And then we use something else with the help of Cloud Code. So it's called Cloud Code commands. Have anyone heard about this? Okay, I see 2-3 hands. Yeah, basically instead of storing all these prompts inside of some file, and again you have friction to go into that file to browser, we decided to store it in Git. So basically there is a folder that's being created if you use code, and inside of it there's a folder called commands. So basically there are prompts, and you can execute these prompts from Code. So, and you can see the same commands basically they showed before, but they are stored in Git, so they've been refined. And our engineers now own it. And here you can see actually command about creating composable from Figma. So what it means, right now we're iterating on that forgotten experiment, and maybe right now with the help of Cloud Code, we would see it as a success. So far, we don't build screens or UI that much. We provide the tool for developers, but we don't see a good adoption of it. We still work with people, right? Who is driving the adoption is quite important. I would advise you to pick, if possible, someone who is, I don't like this word to be honest, but this is the word we picked, championing, who's the champion of AI in the organization, in each domain. So the people with the right energy who is spreading the adoption, basically. And if you even have the money and the desire for this, you can pick and create specific roles for this inside the organization. This is something that we did. About onboarding people, I showed already, workshops, some sessions with experts with AI. And just maybe one question here. Does anyone these days get goals about progressive use about AI? Yeah? Yeah, this is what we're doing as well, just to spread it even more. Now, measurement.
Hey.
Yeah. Huh?
Could you explain progress reviews?
Let's talk about this after this section, because this is another topic. I just wanted to mention that we do it, but this is a rabbit hole of potential discussion. Yeah, don't just do it blindly. This is what I mean. But that's a good question. Measurement. Let's say your manager, like Sammy's manager, is asking for KPI, right? How to measure all the stuff that we create and spend money. Spoilers, nobody, including us, corrected yet. This is the hardest part of AI hype train thingy. It was hard even before with the to measure developer experience in general. Now it's even harder. This is the most creative slide of this presentation. Yeah, like the most creativity I could have put in the slide in general. Any guesses? What can it be?
Random number.
Random number. Maybe tax rate. I don't know. And yeah, could be a good thing. Let's talk about how we spend time during sprints or whatever format you're using for development. In very, very optimistic scenario, you have like 40% time working on actual coding. In this 40%, 60% of tasks, 40% time, 60% tasks are supported by any assistant or agent or whatever. And in this 60%, there's a like 50% chance that the task will complete, right? If you do the math and you calculate all of this, the best case scenario, again, the numbers here is not important, they're just for the reference, right? You will get 13%. So if you hear somewhere from someone, we would get you 5 times a better delivery with help of AI, it's all BS, in my opinion. They either trying to promote you some stuff, sell you some AI stuff. This is the numbers, 10%, 13%, that's more or less what we see right now. And also it's still really subjective. It's really subjective because it's really hard to measure. MIT, that's the organization from United States, they, beginning of the year, they found out that 95% of generative AI pilots actually produce no measurable business return. Crazy, just 5% of projects in the market producing some return. With like $40 billion invested in industry and 5% of return. It sounds really crazy to me, but also a bit makes sense because in my opinion, this is just the money not necessarily lost, but it's our tuition fee for to learn and to discover what doesn't work in AI. So we were in a really naive stage, like trying to solve any problem with AI, and it's like this idiom, when you have hammer, you're constantly looking for a nail, and so on. This is what happened in my opinion. And this is the start of more or less systemic and value-driven approach. I would advise you to do this because this number is crazy. And when I read it, I was like, wow, that's just super crazy. Now, finally, what do we measure at Qonto? First, the same delivery metrics that we were measuring before. Basically, how much time for us takes to deliver actual impact for the customer, one thing. Amount of bugs, quality, incidents, all of this, we started even more carefully measure because it's quite important. What we didn't do, and we didn't do the A/B test experiment. Ideally, I mean, we jumped in this train of AI right away, but ideally, we could have done the experiment and one team is using AI, another team is not using AI. This is the best you can do. But again, subjective, but the best you can do. We didn't do that. We measure adoption per different teams and per different domains, like basic to spot patterns, more or less. To spot patterns where adoption is lagging. For example, in security teams, like adoption is not that great because you can't really use AI for security. You will have more problems with security with AI. I mean, in comparison to front-end world, for example. We go deeper on the per team view. So basically, and check inside of the teams who is using the tools or who is not using the tools on a daily basis. But we don't go deeper because we believe these metrics can be gamified. So if you see something like how many lines were changed with AI or anything like this, it's all BS as well, in my opinion. Don't try to measure it by your engineers by this. We only do it just to check the patterns and trends. As I said, activity trends. We use Cloud Code, but we also don't limit our engineers. We kind of a bit privileged to use also licenses from Copilot and also Cursor, all together in parallel. If it's possible to do it in New York, please do, because this way we can say, okay, Cursor now updated something, let's use this instead of counting a lot on Cloud Code, because the tools are changing a lot and fast, and this helps us to see the patterns, how they're changing. Of course, we worry about cost. I didn't update the slides, but our cloud cost chart is like this, basically, right now. I didn't want to even see this because it terrifies me, to be honest. It's already more than salaries, combined salaries of some teams. Yeah, but which teams and what is it small or bad, I cannot disclose. And also we measure, of course, average cost of using Cloud Code per engineer. As you can see here, for example, iOS and web is in lead, and then Android somewhere a bit in the middle, and then SRE team, for example, is using it a lot. And also the other thing that we use, that tools are like, and metrics are semi-objective, but at least there are some numbers. Now, what is really subjective, like we also implemented the way how for engineers to provide the feedback, where let's say some time was saved with help of AI tools, you can report it, tag it with a certain tag, and then we collecting all these feedbacks. And for example, Jakub here telling us that he implemented some data network layer for Android, and it saved him 1 day, or Juan says that 3 or 4 days was saved with AI as well, or maybe Nicola saying that it wasn't even possible to do it without help of AI. It doesn't, I mean, again, it's subjective, but if you have many data inputs, you can see some patterns and trends again, like where it helps exactly. And spoiler alert for us, it helps a lot with like these tech tasks, not features yet, but I mentioned it already many times. Now, how Sammy is doing today. Sammy lives in IDE, that's important, because for a while he was living outside of IDE and we had friction. Sammy knows boundaries. We're not trying to solve any problem with help of Sammy. Sammy is still quite limited. Again, super helpful with repetitive tasks, and helps not only our developers, but also PMs and designers, because here I'm sharing a lot perspective on mobile engineer on this, but imagine what our PMs are doing with all of that. Yeah, and a bit about timeline, how we see our future. First, we want to move Sammy to our CI pipelines, because right now we talk with Cloud Code on local machines. This time is precious. Like every time you have to rebuild the app, it takes time again. Time means money. We want to move it to CI/CD and basically build some interface and say, create me feature flag for this, and then just goes and creates PR, and then PR gets merged. This is how we see it. So right now we're at the step of negotiating with our security team to actually use Cloud Code on our CI pipelines. Then Sammy would be automating basically part of the process completely. Like I see it potentially, and maybe even building feature from 0 to 1. So far it's not happening for us. And then when Sammy would be capable of building feature from 0 to 1, Sammy would be promoted to L2 engineer, so basically middle engineer. So if it's happening fast or not, I cannot really tell. The industry is moving in a really interesting way. Maybe we would stop at L1 level, we would never go further, or maybe Sammy would be promoted to L3 engineer in 3 years, I don't know. Now, if you were somehow sleeping, found yourself sleeping after lunch and didn't get anything from what I was telling you about before, now it's the time to wake up, because there are some takeaways. Pick a champion. Who is driving the adoption in your org is really important. I see, like, let's say, in the German market at least, the same companies, they have the same budget, the same tech mindset, and one company have like really AI advocate who is driving a lot of adoption. They're doing way better than someone like who is like still a bit neglecting all this AI stuff and like being picky and super cautious. So people are still quite important. Build this safe sandbox early. For us, it was that LLM wrapper. So essential step again, don't try, in my opinion, don't try to hop in Cursor right away. Get your buy-in from every team member. So product, designer, developer. So let them use the tools that give them the access to the latest models. Starting from boring work, don't try to solve features right away. By boring work, I mean low-hanging fruits that your senior engineers hate to do. Keep the menu short. There are so many options right now to use the tools. You can be easily overwhelmed by this. And last but not least, embrace your wins and learn from failures. So, because it's quite important to not only speak about what happened and what succeeded, but also what failed. Now, before this conference, I got a call from Sammy, and Sammy called me and said, like, please take a selfie. So it wasn't my idea, but sorry guys, but I need to take a selfie because Sammy asked me to. Like, oh. Say Sammy, please.
Sammy.
Okay. Sounded like WhatsApp from some movie. Okay. WhatsApp, yeah. With this, that's it. Thank you for listening me for 40 minutes. This QR code is leading you to wipe-coded website with presentation links and everything. This is not our advertisement of Lovable, but these days you can create website in 3 minutes, and it's quite handy. Thank you. Here is my contacts, and I would glad to hear your questions. Yes, go.